A woman who lives alone is not weak, she is strong. She is not lonely, she is learning to be whole. She is not incomplete, she is complete in ways many never realize. Society often misunderstands her. Some pity her, some judge her, and some envy her freedom. But to live alone is not just about staying in a house without others. It is about learning the art of self-companionship. Living alone teaches lessons that no school, no workplace, and sometimes even no relationship can teach. It teaches the courage to face silence, the patience to build resilience, and the strength to stand tall, even when the world assumes you need someone to lean on. Every woman who chooses or happens to walk the path of living alone carries within her a story of bravery. And in that story are lessons for all of us, whether we live alone or not. When a woman lives alone, the first thing she learns is to discover her own inner strength. It is not something she reads in a book or something somebody teaches her. It is not a lesson explained in classrooms or handed down as advice from elders. It is a discovery that life itself places in her lap, sometimes gently and sometimes with storms that shake her world. The quiet moments of solitude and the loud moments of challenges force her to realize that she can be her own support system. When nobody else is around, think about it. Most of us grow up leaning on someone, our parents, siblings, teachers, or friends. Then society paints a picture that a woman must always have someone beside her, a partner or a family, to feel secure and complete. But when she begins to live alone, this illusion slowly melts away. One day, she finds herself in the middle of a problem, and there is no one to call immediately, no one to lean on, no one to instantly wipe her tears. And in that moment, she either breaks down or she rises up. More often than not, she rises. And that rise becomes the first brick of her inner strength. Living alone forces her to take responsibility for herself. If something breaks in the house, she cannot always wait for help. She learns to fix it or call the right person with clarity. If she feels emotionally low, she cannot always expect someone to rush and comfort her. She learns how to nurture her own heart with patience. Books, music, prayer, or reflection. When she falls ill, she learns to care for herself with discipline, courage, and self-love. These little experiences, which seem ordinary on the surface, build a powerful foundation of resilience beneath. Inner strength does not come from avoiding problems, it comes from facing them. A woman who lives alone learns to face her fears head-on. The fear of being unsafe, the fear of feeling lonely, the fear of being judged, all of these stand like tall walls before her. But every time she pushes through, every time she takes even a small step despite fear, she chisels away at those walls. Slowly, she begins to see that strength was never something outside to be borrowed. It was always inside, waiting to be awakened. And what is truly beautiful is that this strength does not make her hard. It does not make her cold or indifferent. Instead, it makes her compassionate. Because when she knows the struggle of surviving alone, She learns to value human connections deeply, not out of dependence, but out of choice. She learns to respect others' journeys, knowing that everyone is fighting battles unseen. Her strength makes her kinder. Her independence makes her humble, and her courage makes her graceful. This inner strength becomes her invisible armor. People may not see it, but they can feel it when she walks into a room. It is in her calmness when others panic. It is in her smile when challenges come. It is in the way she holds herself with dignity, even when life throws storms at her. She does not need to shout about her strength. It radiates silently from her presence. And so, a woman who lives alone learns one of life's most valuable truths, that the strongest support she will ever have is not from outside, but from within. Once she knows this, she carries herself differently. She is no longer afraid of solitude because she knows she is never truly alone. She has herself, and that is enough. When a woman begins to live alone, one of the earliest and most transformative lessons she learns is self-reliance. At first, it may feel overwhelming. She might look around her space and realize that everything, from the smallest detail to the biggest responsibility, rests on her shoulders. There is no one to share the routine chores with, no one to make last-minute decisions for her, no one to fall back on when something slips through the cracks. But slowly, as days turn into weeks and weeks into months, she discovers that self-reliance is not a burden. It is a gift that makes her stronger, wiser, and more capable than she ever thought possible. Daily responsibilities, which once seemed insignificant, begin to shape her character. Paying bills on time, planning meals, maintaining her home, and balancing work and personal life, all of these tasks become her training ground. At first, she might stumble. She might forget a deadline, or burn a meal or struggle to manage time effectively. But with every small mistake, she grows more attentive, more disciplined, more organized. Self-reliance is built not in perfection, but in persistence, and she begins to see herself evolve with every challenge she handles on her own. Beyond the surface, level tasks, living alone calls her to make decisions independently. When she has to choose between career opportunities, when she must decide how to invest her savings, or when she contemplates changes in her lifestyle, she realizes there is no one to push her in one direction or the other. The responsibility of choice rests entirely on her shoulders. And though this may feel frightening in the beginning, it gradually becomes liberating. She learns to trust her instincts, to weigh options carefully, and to listen to the voice within. This self-trust becomes one of her most powerful assets. Self-reliance also changes the way she sees herself. Instead of waiting for someone else to solve problems for her, she begins to approach life with confidence. If something breaks in her home, she no longer feels helpless. She figures out a solution. If she feels emotionally drained, she does not sit in despair waiting for comfort. She creates her own healing rituals. If she faces setbacks at work, she no longer collapses under the weight of them, she rebuilds herself with courage and determination. Over time, she starts to see that she is far more resourceful than she had ever imagined. What is truly remarkable is how this self-reliance spills into every aspect of her life. It changes her relationships too. When she interacts with others, she does not cling out of dependency. She connects out of freedom. She does not need someone to complete her. She chooses to share her completeness. Her friendships, her partnerships, even her professional connections become stronger because they are built not on neediness, but on respect and choice. Self-reliance also gives her a sense of dignity. She knows she can stand tall without being carried by someone else. She knows she can face storms without waiting for someone to shield her. She knows she can move forward even when the path looks uncertain. And this dignity radiates in her actions, her decisions, and her presence. In the end, what she once thought of as struggles become stepping stones toward empowerment. By living alone, she learns the priceless value of self-reliance. It teaches her that while companionship is beautiful, dependence is not necessary. She discovers that she is not just capable of surviving on her own, she is capable of thriving. When a woman begins to live alone, she often comes face to face with silence. At first, this silence can feel strange, even uncomfortable. We are so used to the constant noise of life, conversations in the background, footsteps in the house, the hum of activity around us, that when it suddenly disappears, the quiet can feel heavy. For some, it feels like loneliness. But as she grows into her space and into her solitude, she begins to see silence differently. She begins to discover that silence is not emptiness, it is richness. It is not the absence of sound, it is the presence of peace. This silence becomes her teacher. In it, she learns to listen to herself. When the world around is busy and chaotic, it is easy to lose sight of one's own voice, opinions, expectations, and judgments drown out inner clarity. But in silence, she begins to hear the whispers of her own heart. She notices her true desires, her genuine fears, her unspoken dreams. And in listening to herself, she begins to live more authentically. Silence also gives her a chance to rest, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. The absence of constant chatter allows her thoughts to settle, like dust falling gently to the ground after a storm. In that stillness, she feels a calmness that is deeper than sleep. She understands that peace is not about escaping the world, but about finding a balanced rhythm inside herself. Slowly, she starts to enjoy this quiet. What once felt like loneliness transforms into a companion. She can sit with a cup of tea and feel joy in the simple act of being. She can read, write, or reflect without interruption, finding richness in her own company. In silence, she discovers creativity, new ideas, fresh perspectives, and clarity about her goals. Artists, writers, and thinkers often say that silence nurtures creation, and she experiences this truth in her own way. Silence also changes how she relates to others. When she learns to be comfortable with her own company, She no longer clings to people out of fear of being alone. Instead, she connects with others out of choice and freedom. She does not need people to fill a void. She welcomes them to share her fullness. This makes her relationships deeper, more genuine, and less burdened by neediness. The beauty of silence is that it does not demand, it offers. It offers her time to reflect, to heal, to grow. It allows her to revisit her past without fear, to understand her present with clarity, and to envision her future with hope. In silence, she learns forgiveness both for herself and for others because she has the space to process her emotions. In silence, she learns patience because not every answer comes instantly, and waiting becomes a sacred act. Eventually, silence becomes her sanctuary. The noise of the outside world may still roar, but within her, there is a calm lake that no storm can disturb. She carries this stillness wherever she goes, into her work, her relationships, and her challenges. Others may wonder how she stays so composed, how she manages to remain steady even in difficult situations. The answer lies in the silence she has embraced, the harmony she has built within. What once seemed like emptiness is now her strength. What once frightened her has become her peace. She realizes that the beauty of silence is not in being away from people, but in being deeply connected to herself. One of the most profound gifts a woman discovers when she lives alone is freedom. It is not just the freedom of space, where she can arrange her home the way she likes, but a deeper freedom that touches every part of her life. She learns that living alone is not about isolation. It is about creating a life that reflects her own rhythm, her own choices, her own dreams. This freedom becomes a source of joy, strength, and endless possibility. When she wakes up in the morning, she decides how her day will begin. There is no need to match her schedule with someone else's routine, no pressure to please, no obligation to compromise at every step. If she wants to rise before the sun to meditate or stay in bed a little longer to rest, she can. If she wants to have breakfast at dawn or skip it until noon, it is her choice. These small freedoms may seem trivial, but they become a powerful reminder that her life belongs to her. She also finds freedom in how she creates her lifestyle. She chooses the kind of energy she wants in her home, the kind of environment she wishes to live in. If she wants her walls decorated with colors and memories, she can do it. If she wants a minimalist space filled with peace and simplicity, she is free to design it that way. Her surroundings begin to reflect her personality, her spirit, and her vision. For the first time, she lives in a space that is not influenced by what others expect, but by what truly makes her feel alive. This freedom extends to her ambitions and dreams. In many cases, women feel the weight of society's expectations, telling them how they should live, what they should pursue, or when they should settle down. But when she lives alone, she begins to see that her dreams matter, her goals matter, and her timeline matters. She learns that she does not need permission to chase her passions. whether it is building a career, traveling the world, starting a business, or simply nurturing her inner growth. She realizes that her path is her own to walk. What makes this freedom even more beautiful is that it is not selfish, it is empowering. When she chooses for herself, she learns responsibility. When she pursues her dreams without waiting for validation, she gains confidence. And when she enjoys the independence to live authentically, she becomes an inspiration for others to do the same. Her freedom does not distance her from people. It actually allows her to connect with them more deeply because she is no longer weighed down by resentment or suppressed desires. She is able to love and care from a place of fullness rather than obligation. Of course, freedom is not always easy. It requires courage to stand firm when the world questions her choices. It requires strength to keep going when people misunderstand her independence as arrogance or selfishness. But with every step she takes, she becomes stronger, more certain of who she is and what she wants. She no longer allows fear to chain her, nor does she let judgment confine her. She discovers that real freedom is not about running away from people, but about living true to herself, even in their presence. In this freedom, she learns to breathe more deeply, dream more boldly, and live more authentically. And once she tastes this kind of life, she realizes it is not something she ever wants to give up, because it is here, in this freedom, that she finds her truest self. Fear is one of the first emotions a woman encounters when she begins to live alone. It comes quietly in the night, when the house creaks and the silence feels too heavy. It comes when she steps into unfamiliar responsibilities, wondering if she will be able to manage everything by herself. It comes in moments of doubt, whispering questions like, am I strong enough? Am I safe enough? Am I truly capable of this life? Fear, in many ways, seems like an unwanted guest that moves in with her the day she decides to live alone. But here is where the transformation begins, because fear, instead of destroying her, becomes the fire that forges her into someone stronger. Every time she faces her fears, she takes away their power. The first time she spends a night alone, her heart may race with every sound. But soon, she realizes that her home is not a place of danger, but a place of safety she has built for herself. The first time she faces uncertainty, whether financial, emotional, or professional, she may feel overwhelmed. But as she takes one step at a time, she discovers that she has the ability to adapt and overcome. Safety is one of the biggest fears that weigh on a woman who lives alone. She worries about doors, windows, locks, and the shadows outside. But gradually, she learns how to create an environment that feels secure. She becomes more alert, more cautious, and more prepared, not out of paranoia, but out of wisdom. In strengthening her safety, she strengthens her sense of control, and that control transforms her fear into confidence. Then comes the fear of uncertainty. Living alone means making choices without always knowing the outcome. It means stepping into uncharted territory and not having someone to immediately share the load of decision making. At first, this can be terrifying, but each time she makes a choice, whether right or wrong, she grows. A wrong decision does not break her, it teaches her. A right decision builds her confidence. Slowly, she begins to see that uncertainty is not an enemy, but an opportunity for growth. And perhaps the deepest fear is loneliness. Human beings are wired for connection, and when she first sits in an empty home, with no voices, no laughter, and no footsteps around, she feels that ache of absence. But this fear too begins to change shape. She learns to fill her space with her own presence. She reads, she writes, she sings, she creates. She calls friends when she wants connection, but she also learns to enjoy her solitude. She realizes that being alone is not the same as being lonely. Loneliness weakens, but solitude strengthens. This discovery turns one of her greatest fears into one of her greatest sources of power. What makes this transformation so remarkable is that with every conquered fear, she grows more confident. The trembling that once kept her awake at night becomes the calm assurance that she can handle whatever life brings. The doubts that once whispered in her ear are replaced by a quiet voice inside that says, "I can do this. I have done this before. I will do it again." Her fear becomes her teacher, her silence becomes her training ground, and her solitude becomes her strength. What once frightened her becomes the very thing that fuels her confidence. And soon, the woman who once questioned her ability to live alone begins to walk with her head held high, knowing that she has battled fear and transformed it into power. When a woman lives alone, life often places her in situations that test her emotions. Some days bring small inconveniences. Other days bring storms she never saw coming. At first, she may feel vulnerable in these moments. There is no one sitting beside her to instantly say, "It will be okay." There is no shoulder within reach to lean on, no hand to immediately hold. And yet, in this very space of solitude, she begins to discover something extraordinary: emotional resilience. Resilience is not built in comfort, it is born in difficulty. Each time she goes through a hardship on her own, she learns how to recover faster, how to heal deeper, and how to stand taller. Maybe she comes home after a long day, exhausted and discouraged, and there is nobody there to ask how she is feeling. At first, this silence hurts, but soon she finds ways to soothe herself, perhaps by journaling her thoughts, listening to music, or practicing meditation. These small acts of self-care become her tools for emotional survival. And with every use, her resilience grows stronger. Life is full of unexpected challenges. There may be days when her finances worry her, when her work feels overwhelming, or when her health does not cooperate. Living alone means she must face these moments directly, without relying on immediate external comfort. The first time such storms arrive, she might feel shaken. But each time she confronts a difficulty and manages to find her way through it, she adds another layer of strength to her spirit. What once would have broken her now, only bends her slightly, teaching her how flexible and unshakable she truly is. Emotional resilience is not about avoiding pain. It is about learning how to rise from it. She may face heartbreak, loss, or disappointment. These moments are heavy, and she may cry, she may feel weak, and she may question her journey. But resilience whispers to her that it is okay to feel, it is okay to bend, as long as she does not give up. Slowly, she realizes that tears are not signs of weakness. They are part of healing. And healing, when done alone, makes her even stronger. The beauty of resilience is that it changes how she views herself. She begins to trust her ability to endure. She knows that if storms come again, she has the strength to survive them. This confidence does not make her arrogant, it makes her calm. When others around her panic, she remains composed because she has already been tested in solitude. When others doubt themselves, she quietly believes in her own ability to bounce back. Resilience also shapes her relationships. She no longer depends on others to carry her through every emotional wave. Instead, she chooses to share her journey with people from a place of strength, not desperation. She does not cling for fear of drowning. She walks beside others, knowing she can swim on her own. This balance makes her presence uplifting and her connections healthier. In time, emotional resilience becomes one of her greatest treasures. It gives her stability in unstable moments, peace in uncertain times, and courage in the face of adversity. She becomes like a tree that has faced storms season after season. Its roots are deeper, its trunk stronger, its branches wider. And though the winds may blow and the rains may fall, she stands, knowing that she is not fragile anymore. She has grown resilient, and that resilience has become her quiet power. When a woman lives alone, she begins to notice something powerful that often goes unnoticed in the rush of daily life: clarity of thought. In a world filled with constant noise, opinions, and endless distractions, solitude becomes her sanctuary. It gives her the rare gift of reflection, away from the chaos, away from the pressure of other people's expectations. She begins to hear her own voice clearly. And in that clarity, she discovers wisdom she didn't know she carried. At first, the silence around her may feel unsettling. The absence of chatter, of shared routines, of constant conversation can leave her restless. But as time passes, this stillness becomes her friend. It creates a space where her thoughts are no longer scattered, but begin to settle, like ripples calming on the surface of a lake. And in that calmness, clarity arises. She sees herself and her life with new eyes. Every decision she makes while living alone carries more weight because it is hers alone. Should she take that new job? Should she save for her dreams or invest in her growth? Should she open her heart to new relationships or continue walking her path of independence? There is no one to decide for her. This responsibility could feel overwhelming, but it becomes the very reason she develops sharper judgment. She learns to weigh pros and cons, to listen to logic while respecting emotion, and to choose not out of pressure, but out of intention. Solitude also gives her the courage to face truths she might otherwise avoid. In the business of life, it is easy to run away from uncomfortable questions. But when she is alone, there is nowhere to hide from herself. She begins to reflect deeply what makes her truly happy, what patterns hold her back, what dreams has she buried under fear or doubt. These questions, though difficult, guide her toward greater self-awareness. And self-awareness brings clarity. Clarity of thought does not mean she has all the answers. It means she has the patience to pause and the wisdom to see beyond confusion. It teaches her that rushing is not always the solution, and that sometimes the best decisions are made when she allows herself time to reflect. In solitude, she understands the rhythm of her own mind, the flow of her emotions, and the direction of her heart. This clarity begins to reflect in every area of her life. In her work, she becomes more focused, less distracted by unnecessary noise. In her relationships, she becomes more intentional, choosing people who add value rather than filling space. In her personal growth, she identifies what truly matters and lets go of what does not. She realizes that not every battle deserves her energy, not every opportunity deserves her time, and not every opinion deserves her attention. What makes this clarity truly remarkable is the peace it brings. She is no longer pulled in 1,000 directions by the world's demands. Instead, she knows her priorities, her values, and her goals. This does not mean she never faces confusion. It means she has the strength to sit with confusion until it clears. She becomes patient with herself, confident in her ability to choose wisely, and calm in the face of uncertainty. In a way, living alone becomes less about solitude and more about vision. Because in the quiet, she learns to see clearly, not just her circumstances, but herself. And once she gains that clarity of thought, it becomes her compass, guiding her through life's decisions with grace, wisdom, and strength. When a woman lives alone, one of the most beautiful transformations she undergoes is the way she begins to redefine happiness. In the beginning, she may feel as though joy is something that comes only through companionship, celebrations, or the presence of others. Society often conditions us to believe that happiness must be shared to be real, that unless we are surrounded by people, laughter, and company, our joy is incomplete. But as she journeys through solitude, she learns an important truth: happiness does not always arrive from the outside. It can be created within. She begins to find joy in small, everyday things. A cup of tea enjoyed slowly by the window, the sunlight warming her skin, the pages of a book that transport her to another world. These moments, which might have been overlooked before, become treasures. She learns that happiness is not always about grand occasions, but about appreciating the quiet beauty of ordinary life. By living alone, she discovers how to notice details she once rushed past, and in noticing them, she feels gratitude. That gratitude becomes the seed of her joy. Happiness also begins to flow through her passions. with no one else dictating her schedule. She has time to explore what truly excites her. Maybe she paints, maybe she writes, maybe she cooks not because she must, but because it fills her with peace. She dances in her living room with no one watching. She sings without fear of judgment. She experiments with hobbies she had long ignored. Through these pursuits, she experiences a joy that is pure, authentic, and entirely her own. She realizes that when happiness is born from her passions, it cannot be taken away by anyone else's absence. Another profound shift occurs when she stops waiting for happiness to arrive from external validation. She no longer feels the need to constantly hear praise or approval to feel content. Instead, she learns to celebrate herself. She acknowledges her progress, however small it may be, and feels proud of her journey. Happiness, she realizes, is not about being recognized by the world, but about recognizing her own worth. This redefinition of happiness also changes her relationships. When she is no longer dependent on others to create joy for her, she approaches connections with freedom rather than expectation. She does not cling to people to fill her emptiness. Because she is not empty, she invites people into her life to share her joy, not to manufacture it for her. This makes her love more generous, her friendships more genuine, and her interactions lighter, without the burden of dependency. Living alone teaches her that happiness is not a destination she must chase. It is a state she can nurture daily. It comes from aligning her life with her values, from pursuing her goals, from enjoying her solitude, and from being at peace with herself. She begins to understand that waiting for someone else to deliver happiness is like waiting for rain in a desert. It may come, it may not, but creating happiness for herself is like digging a well. Once built, it will always quench her thirst. Over time, this inner source of joy makes her unshakable. The ups and downs of life may still arrive, but they no longer define her emotional world. Her happiness is rooted in herself, in her passions, in her ability to enjoy life on her terms. And once she knows how to create her own happiness, she carries within her a light that shines wherever she goes.